Hey everyone, it's Ten Types, and in the Pokemon TCG recently there haven't been that many powerful new decks, I'd say. Looking at the current metagame, we see, I guess, Mega Lucario obviously is of the Mega era, though the first set of the Mega era, and same thing with Alakazam there. And then Mega Starmie is also a new deck. It's a little low for a new deck. A lot of times when you see a new deck, it's well, I'll just say Greninja EX is currently the second most played deck in Japan. And if we look at, like, for example, a random older format like this one doesn't have it. Certain Sparks probably, yeah, also doesn't. But there are definitely times when we do see new decks being very powerful, like Raging Bolt here. Technically not new to that set, but even something like, just generally you're going to see new decks pretty high up. For example, Mega Absol, even at 7 is probably a bit higher than it probably should be. But Mega Starmie, being at 6 here, it's okay. And, it's an alright deck, but it definitely, I'd say on Fraud Watch there a little bit, but definitely pretty cool. And then you look at most of these other decks, right? Most of these other decks aren't really new. Most of them are pretty old, right? But then Mega Greninja EX is definitely performing quite well. And like Mega Starmie, it's seen a lot of play in Japan. Mega Starmie actually saw a ton of play in Japan. But as I said, exactly how good is that deck? I don't know. It's definitely falling off a little bit. In Japan, it fell off. But Mega Greninja EX is really interesting. It is, if you didn't know, it's the main Pokemon of Ninja Spinner with the attack Ninja Spinner. Ninja Spinner is the Japanese expansion. You can see here it's M4, meaning it's the fourth expansion, or I guess fourth main expansion of the Mega Evolution era. The four are, of course, Mega Evolution itself, then Phantasmal Flames, and then Perfect Order, and then Chaos Rising is going to be the international expansion there. I will say that sitting here is this really big, but it doesn't have. I mean, it still has a decent chunk of new cards. Most of the new cards are bad, and also it's a set that is it's different, right? It has a lot of reprints there as well. But anyways, Mega Greninja EX is the most exciting Pokemon, and I'd say most exciting card from Ninja Spinner. Looking at Ninja Spinner, the best card is definitely a special red card, but it's I'd say pseudo-stable hand disruption card. There's definitely depth to this card and stuff like that, but it's not bringing something completely new to the game, I guess, with, we have Unfair Stamp and like Judge and stuff, and on top of that, it's not a Pokemon, it's the Pokemon trading card game, right? People want cool Pokemon, and Mega Greninja EX definitely is that. I think I think Greninja, and then certainly adding a Mega on top of that, it's a really popular Pokemon. Maybe a Pokemon that people are a little sick of, but it's really cool here. And I will also mention, and we'll get to this in a second, a bit more. But this is a callback to Greninja / Greninja Break, being very similar to that card. But we see it is obviously a Mega, so it's the normal stage is Stage 2 here, and it has 350 HP, which I guess is like a little low for Stage 2 Mega, but it's fine, I suppose. And it is, of course, a Water type here, and it has an ability and attack. As I said, the attack is named Ninja Spinner, and for 2 Water you do 120. I guess I should also say the attack name or ability name might be translated wrong. That doesn't really matter, but the effect is definitely going to be this. So you do 120 or 2 Water here, which is not very good. However, you may return a Water and Infamous Pokemon to your hand, which presumably you're going to do essentially all of the time, I have to imagine. Then you do 80 more. So you're doing 200 for 2 Water here, which is... it's okay. I mean, it's not super good. Ultimately, so obviously the best deck in Standard is Dragapult, and I will be comparing this card to Dragapult, but it definitely, you're doing 200 there, but, you don't have the snipe. But you do have the snipe. It's on the ability here with Deadly Shuriken. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active, and again, this is once during your turn for this card, right? So if you have multiple Mega Greninja EXs, you can use multiple, though it does need to be in the active, so you would need to switch out there. But once during your turn, you may discard a basic Water from your hand, and then you get to use this ability, putting 6 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. This ability is quite nice, right? This is actually very similar to Dragapult EX. You have the 200 active, and then you have the 60 snipe. The 60 snipe can go in the active as well. And you look at probably the biggest breakpoint in Standard in terms of the amount of damage you want to be hitting, which is actually going to be 320 there on Dragapult EX itself, because that card is very good. And you're going to be able to theoretically Deadly Shuriken twice and Ninja Spinner take the knockout there. Also, the ability is, I mean, it's an ability, right? So this will not be stopped by things that stop effects of attacks, and I'm trying to think of anything that stops abilities like this, and I can't think of anything outside of Battle Cage, which is the main thing stopping Dragon Ball EX anyways, so it's kind of being stopped by the same stuff, but this can go in the active as well. So it's pretty nice here, and you can use multiple per turn. And as I said, this is very similar to the deck slash card Greninja Break. It's not one card, it's a few cards, and notably we're going to be looking at Greninja Break, and then also this Greninja with Moonlight Slash. This is kind of similar to Ninja Spinner. Theoretically, it looks very similar, but the damage is it's so much less here, and the main attack is the ability lock one, which we don't have on Mega Greninja EX, but Moonlight Slash for 1 water is 60, returns a water, or you may return a water from this Pokemon to your hand. If you do, you do 20 more. That's similar, like theoretically, but obviously you're doing 120 or 200. Yes, power levels were lower at this time, but it's pretty different there. But then you got Greninja Break here. Greninja Break, this is Pokemon Break. These are sideways, and you put them on top of the top half of the card. They're kind of cool. They're I'd say they're more clunky than cool. You also get to keep the previous stats that are uncovered, like retreat cost and attack abilities. So they definitely have some cool elements to them. But anyways, you have this ability here. Oh, I guess I will say it is an evolution here, and it evolves from Greninja. So it's essentially a stage 3. That is kind of rough, but it definitely leads to a slower game plan. But anyways, it says with Giant Water Striker, once during a turn before your attack, this Pokemon is in near active, then you may discard a Water Energy from your hand. If you do, put 6 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. And yeah, that's the same thing as Mega Greninja EX. I will mention, specifically in Standard right now, most basics are going to, especially with Dragon Ball EX, and then of course Buddy Buddy Poppin', most basics are going to want to have 70 HP there. So you're probably not taking knockouts. There's no Hawlucha, or taking knockouts with just one ability. It's not like this is bad for that reason, but if you are able to take a knockout on something like, say, Duskull, that is quite nice. But again, that's going to be a little sketchy, and this deck will definitely be played initially when it comes out. As I said, new decks love to be played very early on. If you looked earlier, I think Mega Storm, who was probably higher. This is going to be true for like tons of new decks because people like to play fun new things. Or maybe they're not fun, but they don't know that yet because they've just played it a little, or whatever, right? But ultimately, Mega Greninja EX, with this round and Dragon Ball EX round, you definitely want to be avoiding 60 HP basics to the best of your ability. Then there is more depth to this card, of course. Ultimately, I guess we'll start, though, just analyzing this on the surface. And again, it's kind of like Dragon Ball EX, requires some weird energy commitments, or not requiring 2 types of energy theoretically is good. You can't really crisp in here. So the main way to power this up is going to be with Neo Upper Energy. Neo Upper Energy, it obviously doesn't work with the ability here, but it works with the attack, and it's both energies, and you return it to your hand. And that means that it's not going to get removed from essentially from the game the first time that a Mega Greninja is knocked out. That being said, the second time a Mega Greninja is knocked out, you do lose. So hopefully you're not getting knocked out all the time anyways, but it's not going to get bumped off by Enhanced Hammer because it won't be there. It's going to be in your hand, or like not on the board during your opponent's turn always. Though I guess it can get hand disrupted, which would kind of suck, but there are some ways to search out special energies, and hopefully it's fine. But anyways, with this you're going to be doing 200, and you're going to be doing that every turn, and we'll get to it, but obviously Neo Upper Energy is very powerful. Dragon Ball EX, theoretically, people don't really play that in Standard right now, but obviously they were playing it pre-rotation a lot. And spoilers, this card is the card Mega Greninja EX, and of course the Upper Energy they are paired with it, can be paired with Dragon Ball EX. Dragon Ball EX is really good, and I believe in Japan, Dragon Balls the most played by a lot, and then Mega Greninja EX is second. But I think the decks that are Dragon Ball Mega Greninja are under Mega Greninja, so in that sense, Dragon Balls being played potentially even more than it was pre Chaos Rising, but I'm not sure on that one. But then we need to talk about another card, which is a regular Greninja EX, which is, of course, which one is it? This one, which is a two-prizer. It is also fighting, which is really interesting because it is a Terra, one of the few Terras that change type. I don't know if a few, but there's not like, there's a lot that don't change type, right? You look at like the Ogre Pond, you look at Dragapult, and the fact that Terra is matters for like knockdown when there is zero underdepths and stuff, but like it doesn't actually. I mean, it doesn't really have to do with the mechanic. It's just a word slapped onto it. But it does matter here with Greninja EX here because it is a fighting type Pokemon, which is really cool, hitting some different weaknesses on some very good Pokemon. I will admit, most of the Pokemon you're hitting a weakness on there, those are going to be stuff like, I mean, one of the big ones is going to be Meowth EX, which you one shot anyways. This shouldn't be played, but whatever. I guess it allows you to take the knockout if it's the active on Meowth EX with Mirage Barrage. But anyways, you have two attacks here. Shinobi Blade for 1 water, which is obviously cheaper than Greninja or Mega Greninja EX, which is 2 waters. This does 170, which would actually, I guess, be more energy, or I mean, more damage than the attack on the Mega if you aren't using the ability, and you also aren't using the energy returning it to your hand, which doesn't really make that much sense. But ultimately, Shinobi Blade is 170, and you search for any card put into your hand. That is a pretty nice setup attack there. I've always said this, that setup attacks on Pokemon that require a lot of setup are not super good, but it'll just kind of keep you in the game and potentially allow you to set up some bigger stuff. And if you're looking to set up multiple Mega Greninja EXs, then yeah, you certainly will not mind this here. And then you have Mirage Barrage. I guess I will mention with with regular Greninja EX, actually it's standard, and I've gotten hit by this a couple of times, and it's really nasty, though not the most consistent, or maybe it is, but it just kind of has to do with how I play. But can turn to Mirage Barrage using closest tenacity for Grand Tree and Ignition, presumably, and then like attach the water turn 1. And you can do this relatively consistently with like Meowth EX or whatever, and turn 1 you just need the Froakie and the water there, and I guess you need it in the active, but ultimately with that you use Grand Tree, and if you're playing Europe Energy, you're not going to be playing Grand Tree, so we'll mention that there. But Mirage Barrage is still very powerful for water colorless. You discard 2 energy from this Pokemon. I will mention with it Neo Upper, you could just discard that, which is 1 card. You could also do this with Ignition. That's going to be a lot better. Ignition is going to fall off anyways and isn't like one of the best cards in your deck for attacking, so that is something you're looking to do, though Ignition doesn't really do anything, I don't think, with any of the other cards played in the deck. But anyways, then you do 120 to 2 hero points Pokemon. Yes, it's going to be stopped by Shaman. Is that bad? I mean, it's not like ideal, but whatever. It's not going to be probably a main part of your deck, but I think these two attackers are going to be sharing the spotlight with each other. Yes, Mega Greninja EX is the new Pokemon, but this Pokemon is probably about as important. Also, I think this card looks really sick. I just want to say that, but that doesn't really matter for this. But what does matter is that they are different types, which is cool, but it creates some weird stuff as well. With Mega Greninja EX, obviously you need to be in the active. And let's take a look at a couple of lists here. I'll look at, I guess, these the Dunsparce lists. So let's pull up this one here. Why not? And we see that it runs. This one does run Grand Tree. So you can run Grand Tree. That can allow you to do the really powerful Greninja EX stuff with Ignition Energy. And we see like closest tenacity. We see, of course, 4 Ultra Ball and 2 Meowth EX there. And we also do see Surfing Beach. This is the card I want to kind of talk about. Surfing Beach is a card I have not, or I guess I have played it in Mega Stormy a little. I've been playing Dragapult Mega Frostlass, so I've been not playing this card very much, and I have not seen it played very much because it's not super good, but it lets you, once each turn, switch a water Pokemon with another water Pokemon on your side of the board. This is obviously nice to get an extra switch every turn, and will allow you to use multiple Mega Greninja EXs on your turn. It doesn't really help with the regular switching stuff, specifically when you have a Pokemon stuck, because the Pokemon that's stuck probably isn't water. It's pretty specific, even in a deck that's water heavy. But yeah, and then also with the Greninja EX, that's not single prizer, but the 2 prizer there, it's not water, right? So you can't Surfing Beach it. I want to mention that, which is kind of clunky. We see multiple air balloons, we see a switch, we see a bunch of switching cards. Dunsparce can also, I mean, it's not going to get stuck, or you can just use the ability to get out of there. Unless you get Flutter Mane. I haven't seen that, but if that happens, that's bad. I imagine most of these lists here. Okay, so this one is running Neo Upper. I'm just like looking around at a few. You would see AZ's Tranquility, a card that is new, that is not super good, but it is a Switch supporter, and it skills, so it's something there. And again, we do see two copies of both the Mega Greninja EX and the non-Mega Greninja EX, so they are both important to the deck. And I'd say almost equally important, we see Ignition Energy, we see Neopra Energy, we see a bunch of waters, we see energy retrieval for the Greninja EX to be able to get more energies, things like that there. Then we can take a look at a Dusknoir list. This is going to be a bit more aggressive. This is kind of, really it's actually interesting to see Unfair Stamp there, but you're really pushing with the Dusknoirs on top of the Greninja EX and or the Mega Greninja EX to be able to really push your opponent's Pokemon like off the board, right? You just want to knock out a bunch of Pokemon. This can knock out big Pokemon because you could do a pretty decent chunk of damage plus that like extra bit of spread. It's really powerful. You can also take knock out some of a bunch of small Pokemon. So it is really powerful. And again, kind of doing that Dragapult EX thing. Of course, though, let's take a look at a list with Dragapult EX as well. You don't have Dracloak. Dracloak is quite good, and the more I've been playing with Dragapult EX, the better I'm realizing Dracloak is, and the worse I'm really realizing Dragapult EX is. I still stand by the fact that Dragapult EX is a little bit better than Dracloak, but Dracloak is really important. And with I guess with the old Greninja Break deck, you did have a Frogadier that kind of helped you, but it's not Dracloak. It's different. It's weird. Obviously, with the ability, you want to set up a bunch of them, and it's kind of weird, but it's definitely very different because of the old Mega Greninja deck. I mean, sorry, the old Greninja Break deck wanted to play. It was a single prize deck. This is the opposite. It's a three prize deck. This is going to be giving up potentially more prizes than most of the decks their opponents are playing, unlike Greninja Break, which is giving up less there. But with Dragapult EX, this opens up normal Dragapult stuff and can then get extra damage counters through the use of Mega Greninja EX. We don't even see regular Greninja EX in this list. I feel like playing one copy could be good. We're going to take a look at a couple more lists. This one doesn't run any either, and this one also doesn't. Oh wait, no, it does. What? Did this one run it? Okay, yeah, they both did. So I just can't see or something. But with the regular Greninja EX, it allows you to. It works better with the Neopra Energy, and it also allows you to, get extra damage counters with Dragapult EX, or I guess regular Greninja EX, but with the regular Greninja EX there, and Mega Greninja EX in play. If you want multiple Mega Greninja EXs in play and the regular one, then that's so many Greninja lines, and that's going to be a lot of Froakies and a lot of stuff, right? It's kind of clunky there. Oh, we also see Wally's Compassion. Completely forgot about that card. I always forget about it, and it can matter, but a lot of times it doesn't matter. But anyways, definitely really nasty if you're able to do just crazy snipes with Mega Greninja EX plus Dracloak, or I mean plus Dragapult EX on something like a Drapier, Dracloak, or any of these 70 HP Pokemon. Then you have 50 extra damage counter or 5 extra damage counters to place because you're using the 6 from Mega Greninja has to go there. Then you can pop the one on with Dragapult, and then you got those extra ones to work with. But ultimately, it gets you past that 60 HP mark and doesn't require you to knock yourself out, which is nice. Knock yourself out with Dust 1 Dusclops can be clunky. It is a stage 2. It's a 3-prizer. It is a big risk there, but is very powerful. Ultimately, though, how good exactly will this deck be? I'm not sure. It's being played and seeing success right now. I definitely think it's a decent deck. Comparing it to the top decks from recent sets, said Mega Starmie is okay. Also, Mega Starmie isn't exactly the showcase of the Pokemon in the deck. I mean, it kind of is, but it's kind of like Mega Frostlass and regular Frostlass. Mega Frostlass is also a new card of the year internationally. In Japan, it's not new this year. But then also you have, I think Fatal Flames didn't really have too much. I mean, like Mega Lopunny, Mega Diancie, and I think this card is probably a similar power or similar caliber to those cards, but probably stronger. Just not as versatile. This is not a super versatile card, though. For a stage 2 Mega, it's more versatile than you'd expect there. But then comparing it to like the other Mega decks, I mean, most of those are basics, I think. And then there's Mega Lucario. I guess I should look at decks. There's a Mega Venusaur as well. Mega Venusaur is not super good. Let's be honest. It's fun. This is definitely better, applying pressure. Mega Venusaur does not really apply pressure. So I think there is something here. It is a deck that plays kind of like Dragapult. Can do very similar things, can do things that are potentially even scarier, having a higher damage output without needing to knock yourself out, and also not having that hard counter of Psyduck there. So definitely a deck that I think is decent. I think it will end up in the long run probably being a top 10. I think in a previous video I said that I don't think it will be top 10, but the more I think about it, the more I think it probably will be. Again, I'm not sure, but I'd love to hear people's thoughts in the comment section. Obviously, I'm thinking it will be probably top 10. That means I'm not thinking it will be like super dominant. I think putting a deck 2, especially in the long run, or even like that top 5, I don't quite see it there. I mean, ultimately I've compared a lot to Dragapult, but it doesn't have Dracloak, and it also requires, I'd say, more resources put into it. It's a 3 prizer. You're not like this crazy tanky Pokemon. You still have Blaze Clefairy, and Lightning is kind of bad, but like, I don't know. It's decent. It's definitely decent. But as I love to hear your thoughts on it in the comment section. And also, I'd love it if you like to subscribe. It really helps support the channel. Another way you can support the channel if you really enjoy it. I'd love it if you join the channel as a member, and you can get some cool stuff for that as well. But also, huge shout outs to my members that you can see on screen here. But I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.